Hey there, welcome back to another episode of MVP Business, where we showcase leaders who live through their mission, vision, and passion to drive growth, profits, and loyalty. I'm your host, Steph Silver. I'm the founder of Vine Collective, a leadership, branding, and marketing agency helping meaning-filled organizations create meaningful brand experiences. Today's guests are both Liz Deering and Ben Gibson, co-founders of the UnInc, an online campus full of tools and mentors designed to push, guide, and support founders as they develop their businesses. Their mission is to walk alongside intentional creators, supporting them in their journey to craft their own unique venture. I'm going to start a little differently this time because I was really inspired by the quotes or the statements that Liz and Ben have on their website. It's very, very different than what I've seen from other incubators or businesses in general. So Liz says, I believe our culture needs to fundamentally shift to empower change makers from diverse backgrounds. And Ben says, I imagine a world where the earliest stage dreamers are championed and the ones who boldly speak the truth and want to change the world. So I think that says a lot about who you guys are and what you think and what you're trying to do. We could just run with that, or we could start with you guys telling me a little bit about how your history has shaped you up until this point, how you got to this place called the UnInc.
That's a hell of an intro. Thank you. That feels great. I haven't looked back at those quotes in a while, so that was really cool to hear that back.
Like, wow, I'm inspirational.
Oh.
I was surprised I said that.
Yeah. So some copywriter said it really well for you.
No, that was great. How did we get here? That's a good question.
Mm-hmm.
It is easier to draw the lines backwards from this point than it is to understand it moving forward, you know. I think for myself, one of the ways that I ended up here is by just entrepreneuring for a long time. It's been 10 years since I've had a regular job, and over that time there's been a lot of loss and risk and chaos, and also a lot of joy. Part of what brought Ben and I together to start the UnInc was this shared experience of feeling like we didn't fit into the typical mold of an entrepreneur. You know, when you think about like who ends up on Forbes or Entrepreneur Magazine, and just kind of wishing there was a space for those of us who are creative, those of us who are intentional, those of us who might not fit into the typical like tech bro category.
Right. Because most
so I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah. On tech, right?
Yeah, most focus on tech, and also, you know, just it's a lot inaccessible. A lot, you know, the chance to have mentorship and support in a path to build a business is inaccessible to a lot of people. So I think that's one of the things that brought us together to build this, was that shared experience of in our own different paths, feeling like we didn't have that support and wished it existed and wanted to like create it for people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I would just, I'd say my story starts in a little conservative, hyper-religious West Texas town, Andrews, Texas, about 15,000 population. And coming from there, being a little gay boy, you know, not really ever having been accepted for my sexuality, for my creativity, for all kinds of different things. And it's not just Andrews. I think it's a cultural thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that was where my story starts, of like wanting to create something for people who felt like misfits. And I've been talking about dreamers. So I call them dreamers. I call myself a dreamer for a long time now. And so yeah, over the years, building different businesses to serve dreamers, and finally meeting Liz at South by Southwest. I was making a documentary about the purpose of life. And she walks out of a bar, and I catch her and I say, hey, what's the purpose of life? But that's the first time I met Liz. And
yeah, and I was in the middle of trying to launch my previous business at South by, at the Startup Crawl. And I was really stressed out. It was pretty crazy times. So he said, you want to talk about the meaning of life? And I was like, yeah, that sounds great. Let's talk about the meaning of life. I don't remember what I said because I was not in the best state of mind at the time.
Yep, she didn't. Yeah, she didn't make the cut. Though we became
That's awesome. I hope you still have the tape though.
I don't know if he still does. That's a good question. Did he freeze up?
Yeah, he's frozen. So, so that's a good point. Let's carry on from there, Liz, because that was my next question: is how you came together. I love the story of you guys had kind of two different businesses, and they collided literally on the streets during South by Southwest in Austin, and then beyond that. So talk to us a little bit about your thought process in developing this partnership.
Yeah, we started to collaborate after we met there. He did a film piece for my business at the time, and we started to kind of get to know each other. And Ben was running a filmmaker space off on Riverside called Uvolution. It was like a co-working space for filmmakers. It was really scrappy and really awesome. You would get in there, and it just felt like this community, you know, of creators. And I was exiting my business at that point, and I said I wanted to start something new, and I wanted to work with women. So I was starting this business called Haven, which I imagined at the time was going to be this like series of workshops for women founders. So we started talking and said, what if we found an office space together, because he was outgrowing his space and I didn't have a space. So we started to like look together and try to figure out what we wanted, and we ended up finding this serendipitous space. Like literally it just appeared in front of us. we were looking for like a bungalow house to make a space because we wanted it to feel cozy. And I had just moved apartments. I moved into this little house in Hyde Park, and about a month after I moved, my landlord said, hey, do you know anybody that is looking for a house? Because the other house on the front of the property I also own, and I want to rent it out. And I was like, how big is it? How much does it cost? And she told me, and I called Ben up and I was like, get over here. This is our office. This is crazy. So cool. We decided to go in on it together and split down the middle, everything, and just opened both of our businesses inside the same building. And for me, it was an incredible experience too, because it was the ability to have my daughter right there on the same property when I was working, and I could just go back and forth, and she could come to the cohort, you know. She's been always inside of our business, and so that was awesome. So that was the beginnings of it. We started to run our two businesses in that space, and we had a whole room full of film gear. We had creatives coming and going, and then we had workshops happening in the front, and pretty soon we started realizing we were doing the same work, like literally doing the same work. And I remember Ben crashing into a brainstorm meeting I was having with a couple of the women that I was working with about like our program, and he started to structure it like, no, it doesn't make any sense. You guys need three series or like a 3-part, you know, phases, and here's how it might work. And he started whiteboarding with us, and then he was just in the meeting, and we were like, oh, well, this is good, you know. You want to tell the rest, Ben? Then what?
It's been a history ever since. I think my part on coming into it with Liz is like, I'd never had an official business partnership before, so I had no idea what it was, and Liz had much more context for partnership. But I think ever since I met Liz at South by, my whole body told me that she was one of the most genuine, powerful women I would ever come across. And so I was just always talking to her, talking about business. We're always collaborating on little projects before we moved into the same office together. And yeah, and then when the conversation came up about us being business partners, it's like, yeah, let's try it. We'd already known each other for several years, so it's definitely one of the best decisions I've ever made. So.
Isn't it interesting how you know, life can work synchronistically that way when you're not even paying attention? You didn't know that you wished for it. You didn't know that it was in there. And then all of a sudden you meet this person that's perfect for you at the time for your needs, and you didn't even know you needed it?
Well, to be honest, I was looking for a new office because I couldn't afford the rent where I was at. So I was in trouble. I was like, can't get enough members. What am I going to do? Liz is going to help pay half the rent. I think I can make this work. Let's move.
Yeah, and we both realized at that point too that we're just both love spaces. Like we love hosting in spaces and having people there and cooking for them, all the things, and this is actually the first year we don't have our own space because we're working with other spaces. But together we realized we really loved creating the energy in the co-working space and just generating this new way of being, like this hustle, but not like a kind of mechanical, like we're robots, we're making a business kind of energy, more of like, let's just be real about it. And people would show up just to work like around us. And then we started to realize that was part of what we were doing. So the UnIncubator name and brand and programming all started in that house, us just whiteboarding and making up versions of curriculum and then running them and running cohorts of 10 people at a time.
So is the business set up 50-50?
Yes, it is. 100% 50-50.
Did you hire an attorney or did you just wing it and say, like, I think this, like, I'll sign here saying I won't mess you over. I'll sit here saying I'll try to be honest.
Yeah, well, actually, I don't think I sought out legal consulting, but what me and Liz did is when we first started arranging our partnership, we just had this long email going back and forth where we just really just put forward our intents for what we really wanted in our own business and what we wanted in our own life. And for a while, I mean, we still have them. We still refer back to them, and they kind of sound like marriage vows a little bit. but that's how we did it. We just came from a real place and really honest about what we wanted in our lives.
And we just started kind of like promising each other things, saying like, for like one of the things in there, for example, that's still in our current partnership agreement is like, I promise to give you creative freedom. Like
Creative freedom.
We like all about like how could we be partners and align in our intent, but then also not try to control each other because we both are very creative humans and need like space to do that. And just we wrote a lot of things I think out of what we're afraid of, and wanting to say this is what we think is possible if we're both on the same page. And Ben said I have a lot of context for partnership. That's because I've had several pretty rough partnership breakups. So I was like, but I'm a very optimistic person. I just figured I'm made for the partnership thing. I just hadn't found the right partner for me in terms of someone that could like hold the intent with me for a business, someone that could grow a network with me, someone who people would trust just as much as they would trust me. Like those things were just missing in the past, and I couldn't.
And someone who won't bail.
Yeah, someone who won't bail. That was the top thing. Yep.
So how do you go about making decisions? Are you really good about just having those honest conversations, or are there times, what happens? I assume that there are times where you're going down this path and then there's a friction, right? There's got to be from time to time. How do you work that out?
Good question. Yeah, everybody we've ever gotten advice from says 50-50 is not a great idea from a decision-making perspective. Yeah. But nobody we still have kept it. No one likes it because we figure if we can't come to an agreement, then we're not really still aligned as partners. So it's like we either are or not on the same page. Sometimes we really disagree on like pacing or direction of things. But we've kind of had a couple different things we've tried that have helped us to really, I think we've gotten better over the years at it. We used to kind of just wing it and like come at each other with our opinions. And, we're both pretty emotionally intelligent people, but we would still kind of trip all over each other and like hurt each other's feelings. Now we come to it a little bit more carefully, I think, like to bring up to each other, hey, this is something that I really feel strongly about. Can we talk about it? And we've also learned to just not try to make decisions quickly, but to say like, okay, we talked about it. Let's let it breathe, for a little bit. Let's come back to it like at the end of the week or in a week or something, and then say, now how do we think about it? Because sometimes it just takes time to percolate. and every decision, as you know, in a startup affects everything. So it's like, oh, if we do this thing, then what happens to your workload, my workload, our revenue? Like, you know, we have to kind of think through all the pieces.
I'd say it's definitely a challenge for me to learn how to make decisions with Liz, because having, doing my own projects and businesses in the past, like just calling the shots and going with it, like whatever I think and just going with it quickly. Like that's what I was very used to.
Mm-hmm.
And over the years, I've learned that with Liz, it's actually been so healthy for me to have somebody that slows me down, that can kind of be a filter for my creativity and my energy. And so but how we make decisions now just seems so effortless, almost like we communicate enough consistently that we hardly come across times. Like, it's very rare that we don't agree on something because we communicate so often.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the best practices we have ever done for our partnership was we started it like at the lowest point of one of the lowest points for me in our business. But Justin Foster recommended that we ask each other 3 questions. He says, ask each other, where is the love? What is true? And what's on your heart? And every single Friday, Liz and I have a glass of wine and we ask each other those questions. And it has just, it just opens up a space for us to be vulnerable with each other and share what's on our heart, and so we agree almost all the time.
It's true, and it helps a lot, because for me, knowing that space exists outside of like the wearing all the hats of our business hats,
Mm-hmm.
then I can, a lot of times the things I think we might fight about professionally get resolved in that space, because it's actually maybe something personal is going on that's like the root of a stress point, and then we understand each other, so we're not riding the other person or like unaware of the stress that the other one's going through.
Two different buckets. Like
yeah.
I have to put things like, if things like we're talking about the business go over here, things that are personal go over here. The things that we have to move through and to make decisions are always in the personal bucket.
Right.
Like when it comes to the business bucket, like a lot of times for me, I don't really know enough about the decisions we're making, so we got to seek other people to help us make those decisions. But yeah,
I think it's been pretty huge for us. That we started that practice over 2 years ago, and it was one of the lowest points for us financially. We weren't sure if what we were doing was ever gonna work as a business, and we were just really struggling with it, trying to figure out the next way forward. And then financially it was affecting both of us, so it was just really hard on our partnership. And I went to Justin and I said, I need tips on how to, I just need tips on how to like grow this relationship as a partnership, because we're struggling and this is hard, and I don't have a guidebook. He doesn't have a guidebook. And he said, well, you need to set aside time outside of work where there is no work that goes on, and you need to invest in that partnership.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was actually nervous to come back and tell Ben the ideas, because I felt like as if I had gone to a marriage counselor behind his back or something, And I was like, also it was really vulnerable of me to say to him, shit's so bad that I'm asking people for help, but I was really seriously concerned, and I felt like we have to get through this together, I don't know what to do. And no, he took it really well, and we've been doing that practice ever since.
We got through it.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that's one of the things that I was just talking to someone who's a business consultant and strategist, and the hardest thing, no matter the size of your business, is being honest and vulnerable, and then not taking offense when someone else is. If somebody says, it really hurts me when this happens, or this thing that you always do. It's just like, it is a marriage. It's a relationship, and we spend more time with people that we work with than we do with our spouses and our families most of the time. Not during COVID, but in general. So, but yeah, I mean, it's honest and open conversations, and sometimes it feels like it can hurt, but you have to allow that to sit, like you said, like sit and then walk away. With both of you guys being creatives, obviously there's a lot of heart in that in general. And sometimes it's hard to kind of put the heart aside and look at the analytics. Do you have someone that you bring in, or who helps you with, or which one of you has taken on the role of financials and analytics and, you know, that data-driven stuff that a lot of times creatives struggle with?
I think what's interesting is we I have a different answer. Not him not him when it comes to financials, but definitely him when it comes to like new frameworks and new strategies. So both Ben and I have a lot of creative in us and also a lot of strategy in us. And so we can kind of switch hats. So we can both be in creative mode, or one of us can be in strategic mode, or we can both be strategic. So in strategy world, I think Ben's strong suit is bringing new frameworks to say, like right now we're working on how could we improve our program and have more of a curriculum framework to it. So he's getting really strategic about it. We brought in somebody to help with that is like a curriculum designer and a learning expert, but Ben's kind of driving that. And then when it comes to the numbers, like I am surprised that I like the numbers, because I was like an English major originally, you know, and numbers are not my friend in school. But I love the numbers now because I love being able to see into the future, you know, or see into the possible future. So I am the one that, you know, takes the lead on monthly budgets, numbers for the future, trying to figure out what decisions we're making, what do they mean in numbers. And then we pull in mentors and advisors to help us as well, to look at what we're doing and to say, you guys have missed something, or have you guys thought about this? So we try to do it as often as we can, because you did get kind of lost in your own, you know, ideas sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. Have you always had that philosophy of bringing in mentors and advisors? Because it's another vulnerability, you know, to be able to be honest.
Really great question. No, I have not. I have gotten better at it because Ben has pushed me to get better at it. So he's given me that face. At the very beginning of our partnership, he would say, "Hey Liz, we made up this great plan. Let's bring some people in to tear it apart." And I'd be like, "We're fine. I don't want anybody else to look at this." Like, I really guarded about everything. Mm-hmm. And over time, I've like loosened up and kind of followed his lead more and we're just surrounded by so many amazing, talented people that are mentors in our program. It would be silly not to ask them, right? But I would say it took me the first couple of years of the business to really change my habits, because my habits were like protective only. That was the whole, and if I met with a mentor, I just wanted to tell them a good story. Like, I didn't want to unpack the problems. And what do you think, Ben? Those are my thoughts.
I think it also, how Liz is describing her personality, it's also a gift that she protects the business and she holds it to, you know, to a high standard. And I think I'm definitely the one who still pushes on, like, are we doing this right? Like, let's run this by someone, or let's talk through this with somebody before we do this. So I'm definitely the one who's more problem focused. I'm always looking for problems, and Liz is always more like solution focused. So she loves the solution. She loves building the solution, and she loves spreading it and talking about it. And I like digging into the what's wrong.
Yeah, and so you're both kind of the visionaries in the organization, which is great because you're constantly growing and changing and moving up. Does one of you kind of take on the implementer role more, or the integrator, or do you feel like depending on the program you each kind of run with it?
You go.
Let me start. I definitely say Liz is 100% more consistent than me. I think I may be speaking for you, Liz, sorry, but I think she like enjoys the consistency of a business, and I do not. So I am more in my flow when I am doing something new. I'm creating something new, and I'm off to the races with experimenting and, you know, doing that. So that's where I fit more. That's where I try to place myself, which also comes with its issues of like feeling like I'm lost sometimes, or like like what am I doing next, like going through existential crisis, like, but yeah.
Yeah, every
that's what I
time
do.
something actually works, he has an existential crisis, or because it's like he just helped push this thing forward, and now
What's
what?
Yeah, what's next?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really interesting. I think I'm the same way, and that's maybe the necessity of the visionary role. That person that's always looking for something next. It is hard because as soon as something succeeds, you're like, dang it! Now I've got to create something new. What's up on the horizon, or how can we look back and tweak it? Like you said, okay, now that it's done, what's wrong with it? So
That's what's interesting you say that, because he's always doing that, and my motivation definitely comes from, I like holding all the pieces together. So think like from the very beginning, thinking about what we're making, how does it work, what's the ecosystem, what happens then, and then building processes and systems to make it work, and then making those happen, and those are the consistent parts. But I also do really like going on the future tripping adventures with him. Like I like to go on the adventure. I just don't want to do it on the regular. I think I like the consistency of a routine and of a business that's functioning, which has taken us a long time to get to.
Yeah, and I'd also add that I like, as much as I'd love to think of myself as visionary and futuristic and all this, but I think Liz ultimately holds the vision for our company. She holds it. So, and then she takes it there. So like I can come up with 100 different strategies and visions in one day, and do that. But ultimately, like me exploring and doing those things is where, and then us coming to an agreement that maybe this direction is good for us is where I think she then will adopt some of those into what she's seeing, and then we go together and we move forward. That's how I've kind of learned how it works with us. I have no idea how it works with other partnerships, but it's been fun getting here.
That's great. And that's that balance that, each partnership has to see where the strengths are and where they can let go of the reins because there's another strength. There's a reason for the partnership. There's so many benefits. And that's why I'm so excited to be talking to you guys about this because, a lot of the advice that I've been given over the years is like, oh gosh, no, do not start a partnership. It's the worst. You'll end up hating the other person. The divorce breakup buyout is terrible. But then, I see like you guys, it's like, oh, you have a happy marriage and it works out and there's struggles. There's so many benefits to it.
It's so funny that you say it that way because, the general advice is that partnerships are hard and don't often work.
They never work. I've read books that they say they just never work. They
never literally.
Yeah.
I honestly think that this is maybe a little bit on the woo-woo side of things, but I feel like going into a partnership, you have to believe that that's what you want. Like I knew going into this, even though I had just came out of a failed business partnership that was really sad and awful, I still wanted to be in a partnership, and I knew I was better, as a leader in a partnership, like more creative, more risk-taking, more strategic. It like brings out the best in me, and I knew I still wanted that, even though the last formation of it had fallen apart for me. And I think maybe that's part of what keeps us going as partners too, is we do truly want to be partners or want to have a partner versus saying, oh, I can just go do this by myself when stuff gets hard. I don't know what you think, Ben. I think I kind of convinced him that partnership was worth considering at the beginning because he was like,
I do know it'd be a hell of a lonely experience without a partner. Just building business in the past it's freaking hard to do it by yourself. And it's really hard to do it with people who aren't as bought into the idea as you are and who can match you. That's just so hard to come by. So yeah, I definitely just enjoy going through being in the trenches of building a business with somebody else. It just makes it so much more easy to laugh about it, to cry about it, to cheers about it, to share your victories and all that. It's just worth every bit of what comes with having a partnership to me.
Yeah, I
agree.
agree. In my previous work experience, I wasn't a owner, but there were two of us that bounced everything off of each other, president and vice president, and it was an equal partnership in the decision making standpoint, and it was really powerful because we disagreed on most things, but that helped us to kind of say, okay, well, this is this thing to consider. Well, this is the worst possible scenario that might happen. Okay, so how do we get to some equal ground, or what kind of risks are we willing to take somewhere in the middle? So the first thing that I did when I started Vine was get a business coach, because I'd been told that the partnership is a no-go. And I didn't really know 100% what I was going to do anyway, but I thought, I can't process this by myself. And I need someone to bounce my ideas off, tell me when I'm crazy, tell me when to go for it, all those things, without having to like really get married yet.
It's good practice though, it's good practice
Yeah.
either way, because you're open to the input. You're not trying to just call all the shots. You're actually trusting that like feedback is going to shift your perspective, which is huge. Like we had, I think one of the biggest challenges for us when we first decided to partner was we both had our own businesses, and we were very personally invested in those businesses, like as our personal brands, right? Mm-hmm. So we went through this long process of, are we going to make this new brand? Are we merging our old brands? Like, what are we doing? It was almost like names in a marriage, right? Like, am I keeping my name? Am I leaving my name behind? Like, what are we doing? Mm-hmm. And we actually, for a minute, we had like the UnInc brand and both of our brands with it in this like lockup of 3 on everything we did. And then at some point we realized like, this is just straight up confusing. like how many businesses does the two of us need to have, But we were both kind of hanging on to our personal brands because it was very scary to go all in to the UnInc brand and just leave our other brands. So we made this pact that we would both leave our other brands alone for at least a year. Just leave them, not kill them, but just not invest time and energy in them, not work on them, not run revenue through them, like just leave them alone, and launch the UnInc together. And I think that was a huge trust building process for us to say, look at us, we're both doing that. We're both giving up individuality. We're creating this team together, and we're both invested in this brand, at the same level of risk. And it worked. And at some point we were like, oh, what were those? Should we bring those back as our personal brands? What were those again? Like we hadn't touched them in so long that it wasn't even a topic anymore, but it was a huge topic at the time because we were both really attached to, to our individuality.
Your babies. Yeah. I think one of the things that works for you guys, it sounds like there's an equal amount of effort and buy-in that has gone into the UnInc. During this whole process, was that one of the hardest decisions to make, of what to do with your babies, your original personal brands, or was there another kind of circumstance or decision that would trump that?
What would you say, Ben?
The main thing that comes up on this topic is like my identity was really connected to my old brand, and I had this like really big fear of, and I still face this fear in this partnership, is like, where is my voice in this? Like, where is my personal voice in this? How do I express myself through this brand equally with Liz? Do I need to hang on to my personal brand in order to be able to do that? So I think that's kind of what comes up for me on this topic. I'm still exploring it. I'm still trying to figure it out. Like this podcast interview is the first time me and Liz get to talk about the UnInc brand together. So this is new for us. It's really good for us, I think. I'm also still exploring my own personal brand, thinking, is there something I need to do there? Is there something I need to protect or foster?
Like thought leadership and moving it forward that way, individually.
Yeah, and we've been sort of, this year we kind of gave each other freedom to say, okay, revive the personal brand if we want to, and play with it. Don't like to not make it be like an essential piece of our business, but to make it be fun again.
It can be
And
distracting.
It can be quite distracting, yes. It can also be really stressful if we're trying to tell each other what to do with our personal brands whenever it's like that's kind of part of the creative freedom piece that we're trying to exercise. So, you know, we still both have our personal brands, and I for the last 4 years of our partnership just blogged randomly. Like I didn't really do anything else with my personal brand. I just blogged when I felt like it. Didn't do much, and then this year launched a podcast under my personal brand. And that was really fun because it gave me a chance to make stuff up on the fly and not be strategic, which I feel like I'm always being, you know, planning like how it all fits together. I didn't have to think about it with that, and it was just a fun endeavor. And then I've seen Ben kind of exploring like what he does with his in terms of writing and storytelling and different expressions. I mean, there's been a lot of creative projects we've had over the years that really had nothing to do with UnInc. We just did them together because they were fun, or they were something that was important. You know, like 2 years in a row, Ben wanted to start the first ever West Texas Pride Festival in his small hometown.
Talk about.
I helped him build it and run it, and it was so fun. It had nothing to do with our brand, really.
It had nothing to do with our brand, nothing to do with our business model, but. Yeah. We produced the first Pride in Andrews, in my hometown, and it just came out of me, and I had to do it. You know, I couldn't stop it, and Liz was gracious enough to come on board and help me with that project. But looking back, that's sorry if sirens too loud, but that's just an example of like how in the past, like this personal expression of mine, like trying to force itself into the UnInc when maybe it didn't necessarily need to be, but Liz was down for the game, so we did it.
I would say actually, it's interesting when you have an organization that your personal beliefs are tied to, that a lot of times those tangent projects are more related to your brand than you realize. So you guys are talking about like, oh my gosh, this thing was totally not. And I'm looking up and I'm like, I don't know. Because one of the questions that I have for you is, what do you mean by providing a safe space for people to find their voice? That's what you said. And that's what you did in Andrews.
Yeah.
So it is your brand. Is it tangential? Yes. But it still aligns with, and this is the kind of the murky waters of branding that we're in this world of what do you stand for, what are you willing to stand up for, what are you willing to put your voice in and against or with, you know, like Chick-fil-A, they put their voice out there, what they spend their money on, you know, their customers know what that is. Same thing with Hobby Lobby, or, you know, so whether you know it or not, you really are aligning and putting your personal life into your business. And a lot of times you don't realize that they really are connected. So yeah, that quote that, you know, came directly from you aligns 100% with that project. You just said is not aligned.
That's interesting you say that, because I think that's what made it easy for me to get on board. It wasn't a question of like, is this like a good endeavor? Like clearly it's a good endeavor, you know, and clearly it aligns with like a lot of values that we both share around helping people to find themselves or express themselves, or holding space for people to do that. And you know, I think that it's easy in the early stages of a business to get down on yourself, to say these are all these crazy ideas, none of them are like making money, like when are we going to make money? But I think that's all, that expression and all those explorations are part of building a brand, actually. And
yeah,
that's why I always like see myself as the brand police for UnInc, and I was all about Pride. I was like, let's go do Pride, because this is like near and dear to Ben's heart. It's part of his story. We are the founders. Like, let's go, you know, like, it was just felt really good.
Well, that's where with your values, morals, and creative beliefs aligned. So that it's okay that that's within your brand. But if one of you didn't believe or didn't agree or didn't feel as strongly, then that's where it can get kind of sticky, because maybe it aligns with the brand and it aligns with one of your values, but not the other. And that's a much more difficult conversation.
That's true.
So well done, guys.
Oh, thanks.
Work in progress.
This year I kind of missed it a little bit. This is the first year we didn't go do it, but it still happened online though. We did it online.
Yeah, everything.
It was not the same. There was just something super moving about being in this small town with people who, you know, really want to celebrate but are afraid to celebrate, and then like rolling in from Austin being like, let's go, you know, like there's just something really freeing about that. So yeah, it was really good.
That's very cool. Yeah, Wimberley, I live in Driftwood, and Wimberley had one of their first big Pride parades a couple of years ago, and it was really exciting. Now it's an artistic community, so it's much easier than a lot of small towns in Texas.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really fun to see that that spirit opening up and trickling through and across the world in a way that it hasn't been. So
It is.
I commend you guys for helping to lead that charge. It's awesome.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's definitely an experience of a lifetime, I'd say, to do that. One of the funnest things we've ever done.
Yeah.
Were you scared, Ben? I mean, that's your hometown. I know you've already come out and like done your thing.
No, it actually came out a month before we did it. You know?
Really?
Yeah, he did.
I think it was like me and Liz. We used to run this thing with the UnInc, and we had this methodology or this idea that we called "Born from Pain." That we talked a lot about in our cohorts about the most painful experiences sometimes will create the most meaningful solutions in the world, and this was the most clear example of born from pain for me. It was like coming out to my family, and I mean, I'm a creative anyway, so I would like create haunted houses and other things, but this experience in particular, being felt like I was shunned by my family and just going to that place of anger. I was just angry. I was angry and I wanted to do something about it. And I can still get angry about it, thinking about it, but yeah, wanting to do something about it. And I woke up one morning and I had to do it. I had to do it. I even texted Liz, I was like, I think I'm going to do Pride in West Texas. And she's like, all right, let's go.
I was like, come over, we got to plan it. He was like, I think it's in like a couple weeks. And I was like, okay.
And it got scarier. It got scarier. Like, idea was cool, got some traction on Facebook, and I produced the entire thing from my phone on Facebook. It was just one of the coolest things, what Facebook can let you do. We got some traction on Facebook, and there was a petition that got involved, and then the petition that got involved really threw it over the top. And news
People were petitioning to shut it down, basically.
Yeah.
So then we were like in PR mode, trying to like come up with a response. Like I drafted a response that we sent back to
the petition,
and then it got a ton of exposure because everyone was like, yeah, why is this a petition out there? This is crazy. We should have this event, you know?
Then it was a smash success because of the petition.
It was an emotional roller coaster for sure.
You're like, thank you, opposition.
Yeah, the opposition helped a lot. It was pretty crazy. And then the next year we got more kind of polished with it because we kind of knew what we had done the year before. So ever since Ben started his last brand, he has had these Dreamer t-shirts that are pretty iconic at this point. Well, we made a remake of the Dreamer t-shirt in rainbow, and we had like a whole set of gear. We had like a very different kind of approach to the second year of like organization of like Ben had a whole committee and we had like all this stuff going on, but there's nothing like the rush of the first one. It was pretty epic.
That is so cool. being born out of pain. I like that concept. And I think I actually heard something about it just this morning, something I was reading. And it's true. Some of the, I mean, everything is born out of some kind of pain, right? You're overcoming a problem of some sort, but when it's a real, like a heartfelt pain, it just kind of bursts out of you.
Yeah. And it can be so powerful because we have a lot of guts when we're just expressing, or when we're just angry, or, you know, like having that moment of this needs to happen.
People feel it.
And people can feel your energy. They get on board, you know.
Magic. Yeah.
I think that's where so my original notion, before Ben and I met, when I was starting this idea of Haven, which morphed into the UnInc, it was coming from an angry place of like having dealt with a lot of discrimination in like the tech scene and the investor scene, and just being sick of not fitting in, like being sick of being mistaken for a secretary or for like somebody's assistant, and then being the only woman pitching, and, you know, like all these kind of things were really hard. And I was pretty angry. Like I have definitely warmed up since then, but I was pretty pissed. Like that's why it was the unincubator, because I was kind of like, screw you guys. Like it's since become what it's about and not what it's not, but it started from what it was the opposite of, you know? So I think it's powerful. What we tend to like stuff that stuff down because we think, oh, that's not very professional, my anger about this personal experience, but it's very motivating to people's work and to their like meaning in their life.
And it is energizing, and you definitely pull people in with you. But it is, like you said, it's important to kind of turn that around to the positive and make sure that those are the people that you're bringing with you too, because it changes the voice, the tone, the pitch, the direction, the momentum, and keeping the momentum. Like I feel like anger kind of pulls you down, and it doesn't allow you to like keep that forward momentum in a way that passion and excitement does.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So talk to me a little bit. I think this is a good transitionary point to talk about design thinking. You guys have an awesome commitment to, well, I almost dropped my water, to design thinking. And I think a lot of that is surrounded or is in the baseline context of experience, right? So that's why I think it's a good time to talk about it. Tell me what it is, what it means to you, and why you have kind of, that's the foundational element for what you guys do.
You want to talk about it, Ben?
Sure. Yeah, I think it took us a couple of years building curriculum and running programming with entrepreneurs before we realized that design thinking was a perfect framework for us to sort of adopt and run our program, and to run our program through. And I think the design thinking framework gives really great context for entrepreneurs who are just starting to see if their problem is even something that other people care about solving, you know, outside of themselves. And so that's what I'd say, that the number one thing about design thinking that we've seen it when we run it through our cohorts is that people get to dig into where the problem that they're trying to solve comes from. And there's magic that happens in that, because your first inclination is to think that the problem is outside of you, that you want to go fix this problem that's out there in the world. But then in our cohort, we see that these entrepreneurs spend this time reflecting inwards, and they say, what is this problem that I'm trying to solve? And they see that, oh, maybe this is a problem that I'm actually going through myself, and can make these connections between their own story and their personal mission. So to me, that's why I love the design thinking process, because the way we run and the way we use it, it helps people get in touch with their personal mission and their own story, or like what the problem is they're trying to solve, why they're trying to solve it.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely agree with that. And then I think another thing that's really good for us with why design thinking is a helpful framework is that it's iterative. And so in the early stages, you're in search of this fit, you know, between the problem and the solution that you're offering, and trying to really figure it out. And it's easy to get caught up in thinking the first idea is the only idea, you know, or has to be it. this process teaches people to iterate and iterate and iterate and always gather human feedback along the way, as opposed to going off and making it perfect, and then launching something that nobody really wants or no one understands. So I think I love watching people shift their mindset about the solution they're offering based on feedback, and then finding that fit. It takes a lot of practice to get comfortable with how weird it is to be trying things and failing, but it kind of normalizes that. And it is a practice I think can serve people throughout their whole business life, not just the beginning. Because things happen, right? You have to pivot. Like all of a sudden, the bottom drops out, and you have to shift your mindset. And now what do people need? And now how do you realign it? And so I love that part of it too.
And starting small, like in the framework design thinking, how we talk about prototyping, like starting small was something I completely shunned for my first 3-4 business. I thought I had to like invest so much money and I had to build it perfectly to start, and then it just never worked out that way for me. So I think seeing entrepreneurs think about what's the smallest version that they can build, as opposed to the most elaborate, expensive, and then getting caught up in it's too expensive and I need all these people and resources to do what I think the solution is. I think that's another really great part about what the design thing is. Like, start small. Don't invest $25,000 into a product line that you're never going to sell. Like,
Yeah, and guess what? You're like, that's what I did. Don't do that. In my garage. You want some?
Literally. I still got it right here.
We still have boxes.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I love about so those two things are the kind of the key essential concepts of design thinking is start small and prototype and iterate and continually get human feedback. Because like you said, what you think is the solution, like, there's a problem, there's a problem you have, there's a problem you've seen somebody else have, or there's a problem in the world you're trying to solve. Your initial concept may not be what's actually going to solve it or what people want right now. Like the iPhone concept was invented long before it was actually marketed well. We just weren't ready for it yet. So that concept of what's going to be, your quick win to kind of pull you and propel you forward, and what do people really resonate with? And it's the same thing with your messaging, design thinking, and what you're going to say, how you're going to say it, what's resonating with people. That concept of kind of put it out there small, test it, like you do, Ben, like, let's get people in here and tear it apart. Does this make sense? Yeah. Does it make sense to anyone outside of this, cranial skull right here? Sometimes
that's a scary process too. I mean, it's a scary process to do that your first couple times, to think that you have a solution that's good for the world and to go present it to people is actually a pretty tough thing to do.
It is. It's definitely easier when you haven't invested $25,000 in product.
Then you really need it to work, It's like, this has to work.
Yeah, you really need it to work. Yeah.
So tell me, are there any systems that you have put in place to stay true to your mission or your framework, or do you still kind of fly and go as it comes?
I think my first answer that comes to mind is for both for us and for the brand that all the pieces of our brand, we wrote this poem that we use at the beginning of our cohort programs. And that poem kind of encapsulates our why and our mission. And that kind of keeps us aligned. At least for me, I'll look back at it and I'll say, okay, this is like a very aspirational thing. And are we still moving that direction? Are we still doing that? And if not, then like, what's off,
Yeah, that's a good point. I think, especially you work with people who are, I feel like all businesses are change makers, but Some are more mission-driven change makers, and that's what you tend to work with, and what I work with. And I struggled for a long time with what it is I'm actually doing, because I don't love marketing. I'm like Justin Foster. Like, I do not love marketing. I don't like selling shit just because I don't peddle my wares and peddle everybody else's wares and like find successes in the millions of dollars that are spent and earned. I want to feel like I'm doing something. And so I realized with the help of my business coach that the purpose of Vine Collective is not to produce the best communication. That's what we do, and that's what we strive to do. It's not just to help our clients, sell their whatever. It's to help humans thrive. How is that connected to marketing? Well, that's through the experiences that we create, yada, yada, yada. But at the end of the day, it's really to help humans thrive. So I'm constantly asking my teammates, okay, we're doing all these things and we have this, automated workflow and this Instagram and this. How is that helping the end user thrive? How is that helping our customers thrive? How is that helping you as, Vine Collective team members thrive? And when you kind of look at it in that context, it changes the game, kind of changes how you talk and what you say and what they feel empowered to say.
Totally.
It's cool to have that poem as your kind of baseline to come back to. This is a weird thing.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, it reminds me that I guess I didn't even realize that I have a personal poem that is my baseline when I get into like really big decision mode. And it came to me in the middle of college. And the poem is called Leap Before You Look.
Nice.
Instead of look before you leap. Like, don't overanalyze it. Like, if you're really, really struggling, just go for it. Just jump. Just make the leap. Don't live like sheep is part of the poem. But yeah. So yeah, I didn't even think about it till you just said that. But like when I get to those like struggle moments where I'm like Tony Robbins called it, like in the dance, like going back and forth between these two things, and like just leap before you look.
Yeah, I'll always go back to saying, so the first line of the poem for us is, we are here to hold space for the creators, to walk alongside the lonely ones who will change the world. So I'll ask myself, are we holding space? Are we still working? Are we still doing it for the same people? It grounds us in like, is that really still what we're doing? However we're pulling it off,
Yeah, absolutely. Because it may be that you have to do all your work through Zoom all of a sudden.
Exactly.
There are no co-working spaces right now
here, yeah.
Yeah. Co-working is with your 3-year-old child and your puppy or whatever.
Yep, exactly.
But people are still creating, and they still need support, and they still need to have a space for their voice to be heard.
Yeah,
that's really cool. So you guys work with so many different kinds of businesses. Are there any common mistakes that you've seen founders make kind of over and over again that you would kind of bring light to? Or
go ahead, Ben.
Common mistakes. Do you have something? I have to think for a second.
Yeah, I think the first thing that jumps up to me is, I don't know if I call it a mistake, but it's like a belief that people have to let go of. They often come into our program or into our experience with the belief that there's something they're doing wrong, like they're wrong, or they're not good enough for this or something. Because there's been no path, there's no examples. It doesn't seem to make it. It seems like chaos, So they kind of relearn through the experience with us that they are exactly where they're supposed to be. They have what they need. Their mentality has to shift, because it takes a lot of belief to walk this road. And I think that's probably one of the biggest misbeliefs I've seen is because we all tend to feel like that. I didn't even identify with myself as a founder or entrepreneur until like my 3rd business, because I didn't think I looked or sounded or felt like the examples I had seen. And so yeah, that's the first thing that comes to mind for me.
Yeah, it's a little tough to answer because I feel every entrepreneur has a different story that goes through our program. They have a different story, so they're faced with just an entirely different web of problems and experiences that they're moving through with us. But I'd say if there's one, and the most common mistake, it's probably something to do with what Liz is saying, but coming in it's not a mistake really. It's not a mistake that they make. It's just they just don't know yet how to trust the process as much as you can. And I think, and that's something I think that they all get out of it by the end of the process, by the end of the program, is learning how to trust the process of entrepreneurship and trusting that the next piece of what you're looking for, what you're needing, is going to unfold as you leap. So
Yeah, I think the other thing I would add on to that is, I think across our culture, there's like a perfectionism or like a fear of failure.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the mistakes people make is thinking that failure is like the end of the road. It's not, it's just learning, and it's not a cliche. I think it's true that like the more times you fail, the better you get at the practice of entrepreneurship. But because, like Ben's saying, you trust the process, you trust your own gut more, you trust like things you can't see, you start to realize there's way more going on than what you think you're controlling. And so, the mistakes I think are important.
How much value is there to follow your gut and your intuition and just go in the direction that you think is the best direction, whether it's completely wrong or not? Like, that is so valuable to have that skill to take that leap and just to go in that direction, to explore it. And that's the point of it. And I think it's hard to understand that. I was telling Liz that about this topic. It's like, there's no way, and y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, but like, I feel like there's no way anyone but entrepreneurs can learn that you can only create the next thing in your business by taking the next steps and having trust that it's gonna be there. And it's bizarre. Like, how many times, Liz, did we not know how the rent was going to be paid, or not know how we were going to pay electric, or not know, like, so many several years of going through it enough times, you start to understand that, oh, this is actually part of what I'm supposed to be doing. This is how it actually works. And that is I don't know where the hell you'd learn that.
No, it's interesting. I get this visual image, and it's absolutely perfect. The way you described it, I get this visual image of entrepreneurs constantly walking up a flight of stairs that's like being built. It's being formed in your imagination, and you just have to like put your foot down and just know that there's going to be a step there. And sometimes it's not going to be ready yet, and you're going to stumble a little bit, but you're going to get right back up, or you have to, or maybe you'll slide down, but you have to just take each step before the step is even built. It is kind of amazing that so many people are willing to do that and do it and do it and do it, but you have to believe. It's got to be
I've always felt like it's like there are many paths to, like, I think, spiritual depth or to faith of any kind, and like I think entrepreneurship is one of those modes that you can take to get there, because it makes you realize that's not just up to you, that there are so many forces at work that are bigger than you, that you're energetically like generating things, like, or pulling them to you, attracting things. It is a very powerful feeling once you start to step into the skin of it and trust it. I like your visual of the staircase. I can see myself in the early years of like entrepreneurship kind of creeping up the stairs like, and then after a while I'm just like, all right, let's go. We're going, like we're going upstairs.
I feel like it's like when you first start, you're just kind of like, you put your toe out, you're like, is it solid?
Yeah.
And knock on it and like, does anybody else see there's a step there?
I don't see one. I think especially when it comes to money, Especially when it comes to money, it's really hard. It's really hard to take your steps whenever your financial security is on the line. Like, that's tough.
Yeah. I think it fundamentally changes you as a person. For me, it's definitely like, it's changed me from being more, the way I was raised was all about creating safety for yourself and being very like careful, right? My dad's an engineer, so he was all about making sure things were clear before you got into them, right? He would like engineer every road trip we ever took as a kid. He would engineer where all the suitcases and everything went in the back of the station wagon, like down to he would be like, no, you can't help me pack the car. I already figured out the best way to do it. I planned it. No one's going to mess it up, right? And we would like give him a hard time for it, but it was a well-packed car.
Yeah.
But instead, we're just throwing stuff in the back seat and jumping in the car, you know what I mean? And it's just a more free experience for me to realize that I can take my intent with me and just trust that I'm going to get where I'm meant to go and not be so stressed out about getting it perfect all the time.
Yes, I think that it's an ebb and flow of like having the mental image of what that staircase is going to look like when, as you're climbing it, having the blueprints of the strategy sometimes, and sometimes just saying, I'm just going to run, and hope.
Yeah.
And just
Totally.
believe that staircase will unfold in front of me. And sometimes you feel like you're on a grand ballroom staircase, and then you trip on your dress.
Fall down the whole staircase. Yeah. Totally done that.
Yeah, me too, in real life and in business. That's me. I do both. So what advice do you have for someone who's just at that ideation stage where they're dreaming, but they're not creating yet? They're not quite ready. They're not quite emotionally ready. What advice do you have as they're getting ready to take that leap into the new venture?
I think the first thing I would advise is write it down. Write it down, draw it, put it in a journal, write about it all the time, because that starts to make it real. Like in the early stages, if there's nobody else that has the idea with you, or you're not working with somebody on it, it's just in your mind. It's so hard to make it feel real to you. And so like Ben and I will always joke that our journals are the only proof of this whole thing. For a very long time, there was no proof other than the journals. And now there's proof of in real life. People are experiencing our brand and our business. But with the early stages, I think writing it down and reflecting it to yourself and envisioning it is a super, super powerful tool, because that helps you to articulate to other people and get them on board. What do you think, Ben?
So I would say I think it was in December, I concluded 3 things about entrepreneurship that wouldn't change. And if I ever had a TED Talk, I was thinking these would be my 3 topics, and they're so basic. But I'll just go through them real quick. But like, I think the number 1 thing is belief. And so if you're thinking about starting a business or thinking about doing anything creative, to really reflect on what belief means to you, and to think, what does it mean for you to believe in this idea, and what's it going to take for you to believe in it. And then the second one is trust, kind of like that idea we were talking about earlier, like taking the next step even if you don't know what's in front of you. Spending some time reflecting on what does it mean to have faith or trust that it's going to work. And then the third one would be courage, because in entrepreneurship, whether you're about to take your first step, that's just the one of many, 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 many other steps of courage you're probably going to take. So to just spend some time thinking about what does it mean to muster, what does courage mean, and does it mean to you, and how would you practice it in your own life?
That's a really good point. I think a lot of people who haven't run a business before, or it's not their own, they're not an entrepreneur or a business owner, don't realize how that beyond just getting it off the ground, that there's constant decisions to be made. Some of them are easy, and a lot of them require faith and trust and courage on a daily, weekly, monthly, annual basis. And I would add to that, only now, having heard you guys talk, I love the concept of everything that you guys had to begin with was ideas in a journal. One of the things I think that entrepreneurs, and I think, Ben, you may struggle with this, is not taking the time to look back and reflect on the successes, on how much courage you put in the past and how well it's worked. And like for you guys, how many dreamers, how many people you have helped move on to the next step and take those next steps up the staircase and into their future. That's something, along with the not believing in, or having that imposter syndrome of am I good enough? You're constantly like dreaming of what's next, but in that, taking a moment to reflect and look back and yes, evaluate what worked, what didn't work, all that kind of stuff, but also say, damn, I did that. Like, that was kind of awesome.
Yeah, I think you're right. That's one thing that is helpful, to be able to go back and actually look at what, like, I've written down about this over the years. And like, I have this one folder of pictures, like digital photo pictures of all of the whiteboards we've ever done, of all of our brainstorms, all the way back to the beginning. That kind of thing is just like so inspiring, because you realize, oh my God, we have been working on this for so long, and we're onto something way back then, and now it's starting to come to life, and it's very empowering to see that. Definitely.
And recognizing the manifestation of your ideas.
Yeah.
You put it on paper, and sometimes you don't even realize you're actively working towards a particular part of it.
You don't in the middle. Yeah, you don't think you are.
Oh shit, even all this other stuff, we did that too.
Yeah, we had a big moment like that this week, because so at the very beginning, and like when we first got a space together, we were drawing this vision on the whiteboard of like a spoken hubs and like all the locations where the UnInc would be someday. We had no idea how they would be or what would go on.
We thought we'd build co-working spaces everywhere.
Yeah, we thought we would build them. Haha.
It's
now
less expensive to just partner.
Turns out that shit costs a lot of money. And we now have had like 4 spaces between the two of us, so we know that. Yeah. But this week we launched a map on our homepage for the first time ever of all of our spaces, and it's like a full circle moment, of like, we are literally manifesting this dream, and it's better than what we thought it was going to be,
Yeah, that's cool.
It's partnerships, and it's working with other entrepreneurs and other intentional businesses, not just our own, like real estate dreams or whatever.
Moguls.
Yeah, real estate mogul status. We're not there yet, but yeah.
Oh, cool. Is there anything else that you would want to share?
I have one more thing I would say to someone who is just starting their idea, or someone who's restarting their idea. Maybe their whole idea got knocked down the last season here. I would say you have it. You have what it takes. You just got to believe that and move forward. No one else is going to bring this to the world, the way that you are.
I agree to that.
Cheers to that. Yeah. I think the key part in that as well is the way you are. Just because it's been done or done similarly, or there's something else, no one else is going to bring it to the world the way you are.
Yeah, it's true.
That's beautiful. Thank you, guys. I have absolutely adored talking to you, and I wish we could continue on and on and on. Perhaps we'll do it again.
Yeah, we'd love to.
So much for having us. We would love to do it again.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you around sometime when drinks can be had.
In real life, yes.
Yeah, like, yeah,
Thank you so
real
much
life.
for
We get back to
thinking
real
of
life.
us. Thank you for thinking of us. Thank you for bringing us on your podcast. We're happy to be here and happy to do it again.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for spending so much time and thoughtful energy with me.
You're welcome. Thanks, Steph.
You're welcome.